Hi and welcome to another video from me, this tutor, and in this video I'm looking at the AQA's topic, Germany 1890-1945. We're going to be looking at skills around the events of 1923, the Ruhr Crisis and hyperinflation. So in this tutoring video I'm going to talk you through how to answer the in what ways question, which is question 5 in the AQA exam on paper 1. Particular this topic we're going to be looking at here, Germany 1890-1945, and we're going to look at in what ways were the events of 1923 impacting the lives of German people. So I'm going to talk you through how to do that skill, and we're going to produce a top grade answer and obviously revise your knowledge a little bit as well. So in preparation for this, do revise your knowledge, have a look at my revision guide, look through the pages there on the events of 1923. Also you can look at some of the earlier pages as well, that might help, and also do look at my YouTube video to help you revise through that topic as well. And once you're ready, come back here and we'll do a quick quiz to see how well you have remembered the events of 1923. Now, over to the quiz. Okay, so here is our quiz about Weimar Germany 1918 to 1924. So have a look through those questions. If you've got my revision guide, you can fill them in the revision guide and see what you can remember from your bit of revision, or maybe use them as a tool for your revision to look through the notes and find the answers. Okay, so pause me now and give the quiz a go. All ready? So let's go through some answers then. So who became the first president of Germany after the Kaiser? So Friedrich Ebert, he led the November 1918 revolution to overthrow the Kaiser, and he was leader of the Socialists. And the Socialists were the largest party in the Reichstag, so obviously he became the first leader. Who led a revolt in Berlin in 1919? So January 1919, the Spartakists led a revolt. And obviously this was fairly successful in the short term. All the political leaders fled Berlin and they went off to Weimar to rule from Weimar instead, which is why this is called the Weimar Republic era. But the Spartakists were eventually defeated by the Freikorps, the returning soldiers, and they crushed the Spartakists and destroyed them. The Spartakists were a communist revolution, and they were inspired obviously by the events in Russia of the Communist Revolution of 1917. What type of voting system did Germany have in this new Weimar Republic? So it has proportional representation, and you should know some of the problems around this. So obviously it led to a situation where you had to have coalition governments. So do have a look at my revision video if you're not quite sure about this, about the issue of the different party structures and how proportional representation worked to create a coalition. But the essential basic issue is that in a proportional representation, it's very difficult to get 50% of the vote as one party, so therefore very difficult to get a majority to rule in the Reichstag. So you have to make a coalition government with some other groups, and you have to sort of share a manifesto, as it were, to make your government. In Germany, this was very difficult because there were a lot of right-wing parties, and yet the Socialists were the party that tended to get the biggest vote in the election. So that made making a coalition very challenging. So question number 4, what did German nationalists say about defeating the war? Well, they said it was a stab in the back. So we've now got a sort of very strong nationalist message coming out that the Socialists and the Communists were to blame for the end of the war. They had stabbed the German army in the back. The German army was in France fighting a war, and on the home front, the socialist government of Ebert ended the war whilst the army was doing well. Okay, maybe a bit of an incorrect interpretation perhaps, but it was a strong nationalist view that meant there was a great division between left and right, the socialist left and the nationalist right in Germany. So obviously we have the Treaty of Versailles. Question number 5 asks how much was the reparations bill for Germany? It was 6.6 billion. And obviously that should get you thinking about the problems Germany has in the Weimar system. They've got to pay reparations, they've got military restrictions, they've got to accept blame for the war. This also feeds into the stab in the back myth for the government. They've accepted this. People therefore are unhappy with the government. And by 1923, the reparations becomes obviously a big crisis. So question number 6. 1923. What event in 1923 happened when the Germans failed to pay reparations? We get the Ruhr Crisis. The French and the Belgians invade the Ruhr to take goods out of the factories to sell instead of the reparations payment that the Germans have failed to pay. This leads to question number 7. How did the Germans react to this French invasion of the Ruhr? Well, they led passive resistance. The German workers refused to work for the French and Belgians. This was very popular amongst nationalists, so the government supported it. They even printed money to help pay the workers and give them benefits for not being at work. Question number 8. Due to hyperinflation, how much did a loaf of bread cost in September 1923? It cost, well, up to 1.5 million marks, of course, is the answer. Now, Obviously, between 7 and 8, we've got a bit of a jump there to hyperinflation. So hyperinflation happens because the government is printing more money. And they have a weak economy in the background. So they can't print more money and have a weak economy. The economy is weak because they've got reparations bills, they've got debts from the First World War, and because they've got a large industrial area not producing anything and therefore not selling things, the Ruhr. So obviously their economy is in a very, very weak position. So printing more money leads to hyperinflation and the currency becomes virtually worthless. Okay, so let's have a think about a question. So we're going to look at question number 5, the in what ways question. So in what ways did the events of 1923 affect the people of Germany? 8 marks. So have a think about a success criteria for this question. If you've got your revision guide, you can make a few notes around the question so that you can remember each time you do an in what ways question, what are the key skills you need to do. So pause me now, have a think about the words in the question. What do you need to do to be successful? What skills do you need to show? So firstly, it's important to know it's 8 marks, okay, which means probably 2 paragraphs or 2 explained points using our PEAL or P paragraphs. It's given you a topic, events of 1923. So we have 2 major events in 1923, so we probably need to talk about both of them. And then we need to explain the impact on the people on Germany. So what did the events 1923 affect people in Germany? So we've got events 1923 is probably our evidence, and then our explanation is going to be the impact on people in Germany. So we need to talk about different groups of people: conservative, rich people, socialists, workers, old people, young people. We need to think about different groups of people. So let's start planning an idea then. So we've got our 2 events. Hopefully you've worked out the obvious events of 1923. We've got the Ruhr Crisis and we've got hyperinflation. So let's have a think about these events. What evidence could we give and what explanation could we give? So what is the key event of the Ruhr Crisis? Explain the impact on people. What's the key event of hyperinflation? And then explain the impact on people. So pause me now and see if you can work out some of the key ideas. So here's what I've gone for. So our evidence about the Ruhr Crisis then: Germany fails to pay reparations and the French invade the Ruhr. Let's keep it quite simple. So what's the impact on different people? The workers, there's an impact on them. They have to lead passive resistance. They have to refuse to work. They're getting fights with the French. There's some real tension developing. Furthermore, nationalists become very happy at the resistance here, rejecting the Treaty of Versailles, not paying reparations, refusing to support the French. They're very happy with this. You could talk a step further. The government become more popular. So suddenly that stab in the back myth has been forgotten about to some extent and people are happy with them. Second paragraph, you talk about hyperinflation. Give a fact about hyperinflation. By September, it's pretty much worthless. $1 worth billions of mark. The currency is useless. So now you can think about the impact on people. Middle class and pensioners have fixed incomes. Perhaps a pension's fixed. If you're a teacher or a lawyer, pretty much you have a fixed salary. So they're in poverty. They are struggling. They possibly have savings which they've lost as well because they've become virtually worthless. Banks start to lose money because people can pay off loans and debts very easily. You can go in with your billion mark note and clear all your debts. And Stresemann becomes leader and he agrees to pay out reparations. Nationalists become unhappy with this and you get the beer hall putsch. So you've got 3 examples there. You could have had about rich people not being particularly badly affected because they've got land assets. There's lots you could have said. So how are we going to write this then? So here's our PEAL paragraph structure. So we could say, one problem Germany faced in 1923 was that, or one problem the German people faced in 1923 was, and set up an argument. Give some evidence. For example, in 1923 this happened. Explain. This affected people of Germany as pensioners and middle class, and you can explain a group of people. Furthermore, another group affected was, and you can explain another group. Let's give this a go, shall we? So let's work together to try and do this. I'm going to give you a sentence starter. In your revision guide or on paper, you can write down your own answer. I'll show you an example. You don't have to follow my example, but it gives you a sense of what you should be writing. So one problem Germany faced in 1923 was, and remember we're going to be talking about the Ruhr Crisis. How are you going to set up your opening argument then? Pause me now and give it a go. So here's what I've said. One problem Germany faced in 1923 was that the French invaded the Ruhr for reparations. Okay. So now let's give a bit of evidence about this so we can say a bit more about the Ruhr and French invasion. So pause now and give it a go. So I said, for example, at the end of 1922, the Germans failed to pay reparations, so the French and Belgians took over the industrial area of the Ruhr to extract payments by taking goods from the factories there. So you may have a fairly similar point in evidence by now, perhaps. If you've gone maybe into talking about groups of people, then possibly you've gone a little bit too far. You just need to make sure you discuss the event first and then explain the groups of people afterwards. Now we've given the event and we've described it, we can now start to explain the impact on people. So give a go at explaining your first group of people affected. So this affects people of Germany because... Now, pause me and give it a go. So what I've said is then... So this affected the people of Germany as many of the workers refused to work for the French and went on strike by following a policy of passive resistance. This led to the workers not being paid, being beaten and taunted by the French. All right, so I've got a bit of detail about an impact on some people in Germany. You can't deny that I've explained some impact on some people in Germany. I should be getting marks for that. Okay, now I can talk about a different group of people. Okay, so pause me now and talk about another group. Okay, away you go. Okay, so my final section is, furthermore, nationalists in Germany were very happy with passive resistance. It meant that Germany was standing up to the French and refusing to follow the Treaty of Versailles. So finally, Germany's standing up for itself. That's one paragraph and explain two ideas in there. Why have I got the furthermore? Well, the furthermore is about getting to the 7 and 8 marks, a wider link. So that's where band 4 answers sit for AQA. So trying to talk about some wider ideas. I've explained one basic idea, but then I'm a bit more analytical and link widely, I can get to the top level. So try and do this now yourself with hyperinflation. I'm not going to talk you through it in detail. Have a go at a paragraph. Remember, set up an opening point about hyperinflation, give some evidence about hyperinflation, then explain how different groups were impacted by hyperinflation. So I've left the plan and the writing frame there in front of you. So pause me now and give it a go, and then I'll show you an example answer that you can use to assess your own afterwards. Okay, so here's my example. So it says, another problem Germany faced in 1923 was the hyperinflation caused social and economic chaos for many Germans. So maybe you've set out an idea about hyperinflation sort of destroying society, bankrupting the economy, ruining people's lives. Okay, that's all great. Then an example. For example, by August-September 1923, the Reichsmark was virtually worthless. $1 was worth billions of Reichsmarks. Okay, just a bit of evidence. You could talk about bread prices if you wanted to. So now explain the impact on one group of people. So I've gone with middle class. So this affects people of Germany as middle class professionals and pensioners were paid fixed earnings. Also, they often had cash savings. This meant they lost all their money and became very angry, and they started to live a life of poverty. Added to this, banks lost huge amounts of money as many people were able to pay off debts and loans so easily due to the inflated currency. So then I could do a furthermore about a different group of people. So furthermore, problems developed as Stresemann decided to start to pay back reparations to make the French leave the Ruhr, and he scrapped the Reichsmark. This upset nationalists as they had liked the passive resistance and were upset at accepting the reparations. This led to Hitler and his Nazis leading a putsch in Munich to try and overthrow the government. So I've taken it a step further with nationalists becoming unhappy eventually at the solution. Of course, you could talk about positive impacts on society. Some people benefited or weren't that badly affected by hyperinflation. However, I think going on to the nationalists and rebellion is a slightly more advanced idea to discuss. Okay, well, if you found this video useful and you want to see more of my tutoring, then do have a look at my revision guides and also do have a look at my YouTube channel to find out more. I have lots of AQA revision guides, lots of AQA tutoring videos to help you be successful. So no need to pay out lots of money for a private tutor. I'm here to help. Yeah, well, I hope you found that video useful and you've got a really good answer prepared for that question. Do have a look at the back of my revision guide. You'll see more in what ways questions you can practice. And if you did like that, obviously I've got more videos for you to go through and practice your exam skills. I hope to see you again soon. Bye bye for now.